Okay, picking up right where we left off in the first video, I just made one change. If you want to alter the size of an asset and that thereby changing every place that that asset is used, like for instance, we're generating all these objects using this asset, okay? If you click on the image itself and not the prefab, you'll get some image settings here. You can change pixels per unit. Now this defaults to 100. I bumped up to 120. Since the ratio, the bigger the number, the smaller the object. As far as the max size, I dropped this down to 256 because the object is just under 256 by 256. I got rid of generate bitmap, so we don't need it, and I clicked on apply, and you can see compared to the other video, it's not as overlapped. It looks much cleaner, a little sharper because it's not as large. So what we're going to do now is we're going back to our script, and you probably could put this loop inside of another loop for the purposes of having a very concise way of generating your environment. Having said that, I don't want to jump into that kind of level of complexity yet. So what we're going to instead do is we're just going to do copy and paste. So it makes the code a little bit more cumbersome, but honestly this game is going to be so simple compared to modern standards that it's not going to impact performance or anything like that. It just makes it a little bit more cumbersome, but as you can see, copy and pasting really doesn't take a lot of time. So yes, it could be more concise if we put this inside of another loop, but instead we'll just do this. So really the only change we have to make from one to the other is we have to change the y coordinate. And we'll just do it by increments of 2. Not to mention that it's how I'm currently envisioning the final product, it's not going to be that big of an environment, so it's not like as if you're actually saving that much code. So you'd be saving a little, but and so now the whole screen should be full. And there we go. So a little bit of a gap, so a little bit too much, but not too bad. So what we could do is, I hate to really nitpick this. And when it's a decimal, you need to make sure you put in the letter F after it, or else seeing the period in the middle of a coordinate confuses it. So the better thing to do would be to plan ahead and get the size exactly right to begin with. So did like 3175. Yep, forgot the F there. And there at the end. So you got the spaces are all but missing. There's a tiny bit of a line there, but to me that actually looks okay because you don't want it to be exactly right. You want little creaks and cracks and things like that. Not to mention there'll be other things on top of this. And just to see how far it spreads, if we go out to Window and we choose Scene, we can zoom out and you can see how much of an area it takes up. So like here is the center where we are. So it actually goes up to the top and over to the left. And so now you can just repeat this as many times as you want, but I think that should be good for now. Now our environment is far from complete, but there's no great way of dealing with just the environment and then going on to another functionality. You kind of have to build the environment as you build the game in its entirety. So even though I tried to consolidate certain types of functions into a single video, really can't do it in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to add our playable character. So just take that image that we added before, drag and drop it. Now since it goes to 0, 0, I think I moved my camera during testing. Let's put that back. There we go. Now, whenever you put an object into a game, it has an order in the layer. See it right here. So when we created our prefab, it had an order of 0. So our playable character needs to be on top of that, and we want to give us a little room in case there's ever going to be something in between them and the floor. Not sure what it would be. Let's put them at say 5. So that puts a solid 4 levels in between them. Now that they are there, we can work with movement. There are many ways to do this. No one way is the right way. It all depends what scales for your project. For instance, you could attach a script to the main camera that detects keyboard input and then moves the camera. So the camera would move, and effectively it looks like your character is moving. The other thing that you can do is you can build on the script for the GM, make the main camera be linked to the GM through a variable, like we've seen other objects be linked to the GM, and that way you can continue to use the Game Master script to control that central functionality. So let's go ahead and do that. We will put the scripting right on the Game Master object and have it manipulate the main camera. So first thing that we need to do is, since we're going to be moving the camera, let's click on main camera and add the physics 2D, rigid body 2D. So this is applying physics in a 2D plane. So gravity scale for now, let's make it 0. That by default it has no gravity, that we have to manually set it to be certain levels. Now let's go to our GM object. We will now put in the code for the camera and for the keystrokes. So, camera is just like any other object. You can give a variable to store it. Once you've put a variable into script, whatever object that a script is attached to can then manipulate that attached object. So let's cove it overhead cam. Save it, and for just a moment we'll bit back. There's a GM object. There's overhead cam. We just drag and drop it. Now what we do is we need to put in the code to detect key presses. So there's two parts to the key press. One is you have to create a variable for each key that you want to check. You assign the key, and then the second thing you have to do is you put in like if statements to see if the key has been pressed. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste this because it's a bunch of typing. But you can see it's the same thing 4 times. Again, the word public, key code, that's when you're looking for input, and these can be whatever you want, but they might as well be meaningful. Move up, move down, move left, move right. Let's save that. Again, they should appear over here. And so we'll use typical WASD. Actually, WS, this is down. So now what we're going to do is so we have the overhead cam, we're checking for the key presses. Now we have to say what happens if the key is pressed. So in the update section, because this gets checked once per frame, just as it says there, we put in an if statement. And since it's input we're looking for, it's if input, and get key, get key down, and we'll start with move up. Now, since we want to modify some aspect of the variable for the camera, we have to call out to that variable. So it would be, the variable name was overhead cam, then dot get component, then rigid body 2D, then velocity, because that's what we'll be changing, and then it's new vector 3, because there's 3 different directions it could be moving. Although technically only 2, since this is a 2D project. So since this is up, it would be 0, comma, let's give it a 3 velocity. So it's X, Y, Z. And we'll save that. And all that should happen is it should move up when we press the W key. And it does. Perfect. Now, forgive me for cutting and pasting, but it's exactly the same principle just for the other directions. With one wrinkle, we're going to do an else here. So rather than having it be a standalone, we're going to have one condition be checked at a time, and you'll see at the end why we're doing this. So we just have to change this to move down, and if we like that speed, we'll keep 3 and just make it negative. Else. Move left. Now we have to change the x-coordinate. Since it's moving left, it would be a negative 3. That would be 0. And this would be move right. That would be a positive 3. Now obviously you can't see the keys I'm pressing when I'm controlling the character, but I'll let you know if it's not working. Okay, good, no error messages at the bottom. And as I press WASD, I should move in the different directions. Now, first thing that comes to mind is, well, the character isn't moving, only the environment is. So that's actually a very easy fix. We might change it later, but for now, we're going to take our player and make it a child of the main camera. So when the main camera moves, they move. What a big difference that little thing makes. And so they're staying at the center of the screen, and that's a very good start.